Emily had worked at the upscale restaurant Le Blanc for nearly a year. It was a high-end establishment that attracted wealthy clients, business executives, and social elites. She had always known that the management had unspoken biases, but she kept her head down, focused on her job, and treated every customer with kindness. However, that evening, something happened that she simply couldn't ignore. It was a busy night, with a soft hum of conversation filling the dimly lit restaurant. The waitstaff moved swiftly between tables, their hands balancing expensive bottles of wine and beautifully plated dishes. Emily was in the middle of clearing a table when she noticed a man standing near the entrance, waiting to be seated. He was tall, dressed in an elegant navy blue suit, and carried himself with confidence. His presence should have commanded immediate attention, but something was off. The hostess, a young woman named Claire, glanced at him briefly before turning away without offering him a menu or acknowledging his presence. The other waiters walked past him as if he were invisible. Emily frowned, watching as the man remained standing there, shifting slightly as he realized he was being ignored. She knew exactly why. It wasn't the first time she had seen this happen at Le Blanc. The restaurant catered to a predominantly white clientele, and though no one explicitly stated it, black customers were often treated as though they didn't belong. Some were turned away with weak excuses about reservations only, while others, like this man, were simply ignored until they got frustrated and left. Emily felt a twinge of anger. This wasn't just unprofessional, it was wrong. She took a deep breath, grabbed a menu, and approached him with a warm smile. "Good evening, sir. Would you like a table for one?" she asked. The man's expression shifted from guarded to slightly surprised. He studied her for a moment before nodding. "Yes, please." She guided him to a table near the window, one of the best spots in the restaurant. "Can I get you something to drink while you look over the menu?" "A glass of red wine would be great," he said, offering a small but appreciative smile. Emily nodded and walked toward the bar, but before she could place the order, she heard a sharp voice behind her. "Emily, the manager, Richard," called out. She turned to see him approaching with a scowl on his face. He was a tall man in his late 40s, always impeccably dressed, but carrying an air of arrogance that made people uneasy. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded in a low, harsh voice. Emily blinked. "Taking a customer's order." Richard's jaw tightened. "We don't waste prime seating on people like him." Emily felt a surge of anger rise in her chest. She knew exactly what he meant. "He's a paying customer, just like everyone else," she said, keeping her voice steady. Richard's expression darkened. "This isn't up for discussion. I'll handle it." Emily's heart pounded as she watched him walk toward the man's table, prepared to send him away. She had a choice: stay quiet like everyone else, or stand up for what was right. And for the first time since she started working at Le Blanc, she decided she wasn't going to look the other way. The next day, Emily arrived at work with an uneasy feeling in her stomach. The confrontation with Richard from the night before lingered in her mind, but she didn't regret what she had done. She had simply treated a customer with respect. Wasn't that what being a good waitress was about? Still, she knew Richard wouldn't let it go. As soon as she stepped into the staff area to grab her apron, one of her co-workers, Lisa, gave her a sympathetic look. "Richard wants to see you in his office," she said in a hushed voice. Emily nodded, already expecting this. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the back of the restaurant and knocked on the heavy wooden door. "Come in." Richard's voice barked from the other side. She pushed the door open to find him sitting behind his desk, his expression as cold as ever. He didn't even wait for her to sit before he spoke. "You directly disobeyed me last night," he said, his tone flat. "We have rules here, Emily, and one of them is understanding who our clientele is. That man did not belong here, and you made a scene by serving him." Emily clenched her fists. "I didn't make a scene. I did my job. He was a paying customer." Richard leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "You don't decide who gets served here. I do, and because of your little act of defiance, I had to deal with complaints from some of our regulars." Emily knew exactly what he meant by regulars. There were a few wealthy patrons who expected to be surrounded by people just like them, white, affluent, and entitled. "I treated him with the same respect I give to every customer," she said, her voice steady. "If that's a problem, then maybe the issue isn't me." Richard's eyes flashed with anger. "Enough," he snapped. "You're fired. Gather your things and leave." For a moment Emily felt as if the air had been sucked from the room. She had known this was coming, but hearing the words still hit her like a punch to the stomach. She needed this job. The pay wasn't great, but it covered her bills. Losing it over something so unfair made her chest tighten with frustration, but she refused to apologize. If standing up for what was right meant losing her job, then so be it. Unbeknownst to either of them, Marcus had just walked into the restaurant at that moment. He had intended to thank Emily for her kindness, but as he approached the hallway leading to Richard's office, he overheard the argument. His expression darkened as he listened to Richard fire Emily for nothing more than treating him like a human being. As Emily stepped out of the office, her heart still pounding, she nearly bumped into Marcus. He looked at her, then at Richard, his jaw tightening. "Is there a problem here?" Marcus asked, his voice calm but firm. Richard sneered. "Not anymore. She doesn't work here anymore." Marcus glanced at Emily, seeing the frustration and disappointment in her eyes. His own anger grew. This wasn't just about her losing her job. It was about something much bigger, and he wasn't about to let it slide. Emily stepped out of the restaurant, clutching her apron in one hand and her last paycheck in the other. The cool evening air hit her face, but it did little to calm the storm inside her. She had just lost her job for doing the right thing, and despite her pride in standing her ground, the reality of unemployment loomed over her. Rent, bills, groceries. How was she going to manage now? She took a deep breath and started walking toward the bus stop when she heard footsteps behind her. "Emily, wait," a familiar voice called. She turned to see Marcus approaching, his expression serious yet concerned. She hadn't expected to see him again, but given what had just happened, she wasn't surprised that he had something to say. "I heard everything," he said, coming to a stop in front of her. "Richard fired you because you treated me like any other customer." Emily gave a bitter laugh. "Yeah, well, guess I should have ignored you like everyone else. Maybe then I'd still have a job." Marcus shook his head. "No, what you did was the right thing, and people like Richard are exactly why I started my own company." She furrowed her brows. "Your own company?" He nodded. "I run a tech startup. We focus on software solutions for small businesses, helping them compete in a world dominated by corporations. It's growing fast, and I need someone with your kind of integrity on my team." Emily blinked, caught off guard. "Wait, are you offering me a job?" Marcus smiled slightly. "I am." She hesitated, her mind racing. It almost sounded too good to be true. "I don't know anything about tech," she admitted. "You don't have to," he assured her. "I need someone who's good with people, who knows how to manage things efficiently, and who isn't afraid to do what's right. You proved all of that last night." Emily chewed her lip. It was tempting, especially since she had no other job prospects at the moment. But was she really qualified for something like this? Seeing her hesitation, Marcus added, "Look, I get it. This is unexpected, and you probably don't trust me yet. But why don't you come by the office tomorrow, meet the team, see what we do? If it's not for you, no hard feelings. She studied him for a moment, searching for any signs of dishonesty, but all she saw was sincerity. "Okay," she finally said, "I'll check it out." The next day she walked into Marcus's company, and was immediately struck by how different it was from LeBlanc. The office was bright, open, and welcoming. Employees of all backgrounds worked together with ease, and there was an air of collaboration rather than fear. For the first time in a long time, Emily felt like she was stepping into a place where she truly belonged. It started with a single post. One of the customers who had witnessed the confrontation between Richard and Emily took to social media to share what had happened. They described how Emily had simply served a customer with kindness, only to be fired for it. The post quickly gained traction, with people expressing outrage over the blatant discrimination. Then Marcus spoke up, using his platform as a successful entrepreneur. He shared his own experience at LeBlanc, detailing how he had been ignored, and how Emily had been punished for treating him fairly. His words struck a chord with thousands of people, and soon more voices joined in. Former employees came forward with their own horror stories about Richard's behavior, and customers who had once frequented the restaurant vowed never to return. Within days, LeBlanc's online reviews took a nosedive. What had once been a highly rated establishment now had one-star reviews flooding in, all calling out its discriminatory practices. People shared their own experiences of being mistreated, while others encouraged a full boycott of the restaurant. The backlash was swift and unforgiving. Richard, who had always prided himself on maintaining an elite clientele, found himself facing a crisis he hadn't anticipated. His usual customers, unwilling to be associated with the controversy, began canceling their reservations. Walk-ins became rare, and the once busy dining room now had empty tables. The silence, a stark contrast to the lively atmosphere it once had. The staff, sensing the restaurant's decline, started quitting. Some had stayed silent about Richard's behavior for years, fearing retaliation, but now, with the business sinking, they saw no reason to remain loyal. The kitchen staff left first, followed by the waiters who had seen firsthand how Emily had been treated. Richard tried everything to salvage the situation. He attempted to push a weak apology online, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but no one believed him. The damage was done, and the public wasn't willing to forgive so easily. Within a few weeks, revenue had plummeted. Without customers, without staff, and with rent and bills piling up, Richard struggled to keep the doors open. Investors pulled out, unwilling to associate with a failing business, and eventually, the restaurant that had once been a symbol of exclusivity was reduced to an empty space with a for-lease sign hanging in the window. Richard had spent years building LeBlanc into what he thought was a prestigious establishment, but in the end, it wasn't the economy, competition, or poor management that brought it down. It was his own arrogance, his own prejudice, and the fact that he had underestimated the power of people standing up for what was right. Emily never imagined herself working in a tech startup, but under Marcus's mentorship, she quickly found her place. At first, the work felt overwhelming, terms she had never heard before, meetings filled with discussions about software and business strategies, but Marcus was patient. He guided her, encouraging her to trust her instincts. "You have something most people in business lack," he told her one day, "a strong moral compass. Skills can be taught, but integrity, that's rare." With his support, Emily grew more confident. She took on managerial tasks, helped organize company events, and even played a role in hiring new employees. The workplace culture was unlike anything she had experienced before. People of all backgrounds worked together without fear of discrimination, and ideas were valued based on merit, not on who presented them. As Emily thrived, LeBlanc continued to sink. The backlash had not died down. Instead, it intensified. Customers who had once praised the restaurant now refused to step inside, and the online boycott only grew stronger.
Every attempt Richard made to save the business failed. He tried offering discounts, rebranding the restaurant's image, even hiring new staff, but none of it worked. Eventually, the inevitable happened. LeBlanc filed for bankruptcy, the doors shut for good, and Richard, the once arrogant manager, was left scrambling, drowning in debt. When Marcus heard the news, he saw an opportunity. One afternoon, he walked into Emily's office with a satisfied smirk. "Guess what just hit the market?" he said, sliding a document onto her desk. She picked it up, her eyes widening. It was a listing for the now abandoned. "You're buying the restaurant?" she asked, stunned. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Not as a restaurant, as a statement. People like Richard build walls to keep others out. I want to tear those walls down and turn that place into something better." Emily smiled, understanding exactly what he meant. Within weeks, the purchase was finalized. The same building that had once been a symbol of elitism and discrimination was now in Marcus's hands. Richard had no choice but to watch as the restaurant he had fought so hard to maintain was repurposed into something entirely different. The new space was transformed into a community business hub, offering workspace for young entrepreneurs, job training programs, and networking opportunities for people who had been shut out of corporate spaces. Emily stood beside Marcus on the day of the grand opening, looking at the crowd of people who had come to support the venture. "You really got the last word, didn't you?" she said, with a grin. Marcus chuckled. "Success is the best revenge." As they cut the ribbon together, Emily realized how far she had come. She had lost a job, but she had gained something so much greater: a career, a purpose, and a future built on principles she could be proud of. The transformation of LeBlanc into something new was nothing short of poetic justice. Under Marcus's leadership, the once exclusive restaurant became a thriving community business hub. The building, once a symbol of arrogance and discrimination, now stood for opportunity and inclusion. Marcus made it a point to hire back some of the former staff, those who had been mistreated by Richard and had left because they could no longer stand the toxic environment. These employees, many of whom had struggled to find work after the restaurant's collapse, were grateful for a second chance. Unlike before, they now worked in a place where they were valued, respected, and treated fairly. Emily played a key role in this transition. Once a simple waitress who had been fired for doing the right thing, she was now a respected businesswoman, helping oversee operations. She handled logistics, organized events, and made sure the space ran efficiently. It was a far cry from taking orders and bussing tables, but she loved it. One day, as she was reviewing schedules, she glanced toward the entrance and saw a familiar figure standing outside. It was Richard. He looked nothing like the arrogant, controlling man she once knew. His suit was gone, replaced by worn-out clothes. His face, once full of smug confidence, was now tired and defeated. He hesitated before finally stepping inside, his eyes scanning the space that had once been his domain. Emily felt a mixture of emotions: pity, satisfaction, and a sense of closure. She had spent months watching Marcus turn this place into something better, and now Richard was seeing it for himself. He approached her hesitantly. "Emily," he said, his voice quieter than she had ever heard it. She crossed her arms. "Richard," he shifted awkwardly. "I heard you were running things here now." She nodded. "That's right." He glanced around the space, watching the employees he had once looked down on now working with purpose and pride. "I lost everything," he admitted. "After the restaurant shut down, no one wanted to hire me. My reputation," he trailed off, rubbing a hand over his face. For a moment, Emily wondered if he was about to ask for a job, but instead, he sighed. "I just wanted to see what you did with the place." She studied him for a moment, before responding. "We turned it into something good, something that helps people instead of tearing them down." Richard gave a weak nod. "Well, good for you." Without another word, he turned and walked out, disappearing into the street. As Emily watched him go, she felt no hatred, no bitterness, just a sense of justice. She turned back to the bustling space around her, feeling a deep sense of pride. This was her world now, a place built on fairness, opportunity, and second chances, and she wouldn't have it any other way.